After the end of Cold War, it became evident that one of dominant theory, such as neorealism and neoliberals, had failed to explain such dramatic change in international theory.
Next, Constructivism was coined by American scholar called Nicola Oneff in 1989. The intellectual term tradition on which they draw have a long history in other academic fields, but it was Alexander Wen's work called Anarchy is what state makes of it. The Social Construction of Power written in 1992 and a series of other works which really gathered a large political theory of constructivism is concerned with how the social and political world will work. Constructivists claim the social construction of international politics. In other words, the social reality is not given or they do not exist naturally, but it was made up. The assumption here is that the environment in which actors take action in both social and materials. It reflects a view that material structures are given meaning and used within a context which are a product of human interaction in a social world. Here one can take away three important themes. Firstly, that the social reality can be altered. There is a possibility to change international politics. Secondly, constructivists emphasize the social dimension of international relations by giving importance to social values and norms. Lastly, constructivists emphasize the process of interaction and as a result bring historically, culturally, politically distinct realities into being.
There are a few issues that is being argued by the constructivists. The issue here can also be defined as factor to how constructivists exist.
Constructivists argue that agency and structure are mutually constituted, which means that structure influences agency and vice versa. Agency can be understood as the ability of someone to act, whereas structure refers to the international system that consists of material and additional elements. To make the picture clearer, one of the examples is the relationship between US and the Soviet Union, USSR. The US and USSR represent the intersubjective structure, that is the shared ideas and beliefs among both states. Whereas the US and USSR are the actors who have the capacity, that is agency, to change the existing structure, which is the relationship of enmity. When they lost common ground in World War II, in which defeating Germany, Italy and Japan, they changed amity to enmity relationship. This change ultimately depends on the belief and ideas held by both states. If the belief and ideas change, the social relationship can change to one of friendship. Compared to realist theory, who argue that the anarchy structure of the international system determines the behavior of states. Constructivists argue that anarchy is what states make of it. Quote, when in 1992, he implied that anarchy can be interpreted in different ways depending on the meaning that actors assign to it. Constructivists argue that states can have multiple identities that are social constructs through interaction with other actors. Identities are an actor's understanding of who they are, which in turn signals their interests. They are important to constructivists as they argue that identities constitute interest and action. For example, the identity of a small state interests are different from those large states' interests. The small state are global, more focused on its survival, whereas the large state is concerned with dominating global political, economic, and military affairs. To highlight though, that the action of a state should be aligned with its identity. A state cannot act contrary to its identity because this will call into question the validity of identity, including its interests. This issue might explain why Germany, despite being a great power with a leading global economy, did not become a military power in the second half of the 20th century. Following the atrocity of Adolf Hitler Nazi regime during the Second World War, German political identity shifts from one of militarism or partisan due to unique historical circumstances.
In 1917, Germany declared war on Russia. Joseph Stalin was the rising force in the Communist Party of Soviet Union. Then, Russians, with the help of their faithful ally, managed to take down Germany. At this point, being allies, America, US, and Soviet Union were good friendship. They had a couple of conferences near the end of the war to decide what happened next. To Eastern Europe, Soviet puppet governments were established as a buffer zone between the USSR and the West, with Churchill proclaiming an Iron Curtain had descended across the continent. As a result, constructive dialogue reopened and resulted in the INF Treaty, which saw all intermediate range missiles eliminated. Finally, Cold War was ended.
Then, the relationship between the old allies was deteriorating fast. Over the next few years, British intervened in the Greek Civil War to prevent a communist. After World War II, Iran was now occupied by both the Soviet and the British, with an agreement to both withdraw once the war was over. The British pulled out, but the Soviet did not. Pressure from the UN forced the Soviet to leave in with the establishment of NATO. The Soviet had no doubt that the West was out to encircle and destroy them. Next, US announced the Truman Doctrine, which stated that they will do everything they can do to prevent the spread of communism around the world. Many view this moment as the official declaration of the Cold War. Then, in 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev became the new president in Russia. His philosophy differed a lot from previous Soviet leaders. Within the first couple of years, he began the political movement for more openness and transparency. He also knew that the arms race needed to end in order to rescue the Soviet economy, and a positive relationship with the West must be established.
So, constructivism here can be seen when the US, UK, and Soviet Union relationship at first were in a good term. These three nations had their common goal, which is to defeat Nazi Germany. Their good relationship can be seen in the Yalta Conference. After they declared their victory, their relationship was deteriorating fast. This can be seen in several events. Once the Soviet did this, the US was no longer felt threatened by the former Soviet Union, and major transformation between both nations. Here, constructivism is applied when their relationship shifts after the World War II, which is constructivism is changeable. There is no fixed structure.
As a result, this made the relationship between US, UK, and the Soviet Union worse, because UK and US changed their belief and perceive the Soviet Union as a threat to the world. However, Soviet Union President Gorbachev viewed the UK and US differently. He decided to stop seeing US as a grave threat and began positive relationship with the US.
Firstly, the US is known as liberal democracy, whereby Soviet Union is known as communism. Thus, this shows that the identity and interests are different between both nations, which at the end result conflict. Here, constructivism shows that knowledge or ideas can only exist within the human mind, and that it does not have to match any real-world reality.
Therefore, constructivism here asserts these nations share the same common goal in the Potsdam Agreement. However, the Soviet Union movement totally contradicts with this treaty.
It will affect the international relation as it is increasing the geopolitical tension among the both sides. Constructivism based on this situation can be seen by both sides, which is US and the Soviet Union are still able to maintaining which their allies respectively even after they withdraw from treaty. Plus, both action to withdraw from the treaty also for national interest. This is because both of them have their own identity to decide their own whether to stay in the system or not.
Firstly, to overcome the Cold War, the both powers have cooperated in the INF Treaty, which is involved the missile and nuclear weapon. Both of these countries have been recognized by their own military power. The treaty breach by both powers happened as they have misunderstood a rise in the treaty. Based on the situation, we recommend that both sides should stand with their own power and the interest, to avoid any misunderstood inequality that will causing more dispute that eventually changing the perspective toward the particular side.
So, even though they are unable to cooperate each other, they still have the ability to secure their own national interest. In addition, there's still another theory that they can cooperate involving the nuclear weapon to control the usage of it.
Based on the power that they have, it was not important for them to fulfill this obligation to depend on the treaty. This happened due to the change in norm and environment where this change would affect the identity for US and Russia, as they try to protect their own interests of their country together with their allies. Second, the change in the structure will not affect the both sides. This is because both sides is well known as a top powerful military and nuclear power. Plus, they are still able to cooperate with their allies to overcome any issue that is related.
In any event or action can be seen by any theory at the realism, liberalism or constructivism perspective itself. It is affirmed that knowledge is the best gained through a process of action, reflection and construction. The discipline of international relations benefit from constructivism, as it addresses issues and concepts that are neglected by mainstream theories, especially realism. Constructivist alternative explanation and insight for event occurring in social world. They show it is not only the distribution of material power, wealth, and geographical conditions that explain state behavior, but also ideas, identities, and norms.